There is a composting method that finishes in 14 days, not months, days. 2 weeks from kitchen scraps to finished compost. 2 weeks from waste to the richest soil amendment you have ever seen. The compost this method produces is different. It's darker, finer. It smells like the floor of a forest after rain. It crumbles in your hands like chocolate cake. Plants grown in it explode with a kind of growth that store-bought fertilizer simply cannot match. And this compost is sterile. The process kills weed seeds that would survive normal composting. It destroys plant diseases that would otherwise spread through your garden. It eliminates the pathogens that make raw manure dangerous. What comes out the other side is pure fertility, life without contamination, energy without risk. This method requires no special equipment, no tumblers, no bins, no activators, no accelerators, no products of any kind. It requires a pile, a pitchfork, and knowledge. Knowledge that the Amish have used for 300 years, knowledge that their farms depend on, knowledge that allows them to grow food without buying fertilizer, without purchasing soil amendments, without ever setting foot in a garden center. The Amish don't buy fertility, they manufacture it in 14 days, and somehow, in a world where garden centers sell composting equipment promising results in 6 to 12 months. This method is almost never taught to anyone. If this matters to you, subscribe and turn on the bell. Let's open the file on the 14-day compost secret. The fertilizer industry moves $200 billion a year. The composting equipment industry moves $2 billion a year. Together, they have made sure that the fastest, most effective composting method stays hidden from the people who need it most. Today, we crack that open. The method that makes slow composting a thing of the past. The technique that turns waste into wealth in 2 weeks, and the industries that profit from you never learning it. In 1962, a researcher at the University of California, Berkeley studied decomposition. His name was Dr. Robert Raabe. He was a plant pathologist interested in how composting destroys plant diseases. He needed compost for his experiments. A lot of it, and fast. The conventional wisdom on composting said to pile up organic material and wait, turn it occasionally, add water if it dried out. Harvest after 6 to 12 months. Dr. Raabe didn't have 6 to 12 months. He had experiments to run. And so he started investigating what made decomposition fast or slow. He measured temperatures inside compost piles. He tracked bacterial populations. He experimented with different ratios of materials. What he discovered contradicted everything gardeners believed about composting. Speed had nothing to do with waiting. Speed had everything to do with management. A properly managed pile decomposed in a fraction of the time of a neglected pile. Not a little faster, dramatically faster. Dr. Raabe developed a protocol, specific ratios of materials, specific pile dimensions, specific turning schedules, specific moisture levels. Following this protocol, his research team produced finished compost in 14 to 21 days, reliably, every time. He called it the Berkeley method. But when he researched the history, he discovered something surprising. The method wasn't new. It wasn't his invention. Farmers had been using these techniques for centuries. Amish communities in Pennsylvania had passed this knowledge down for generations. German immigrant farmers had brought it from Europe. Ancient Chinese agricultural texts documented similar methods thousands of years ago. Dr. Raabe didn't invent the Berkeley method. He rediscovered what industrial agriculture had buried. The science explains why 14 days is possible, and once you understand it, you'll never look at a compost pile the same way again. Composting is decomposition. Microorganisms, primarily bacteria and fungi, break down organic material into simpler compounds. The end product is humus, the dark, stable material that makes soil fertile. In a neglected pile, decomposition happens slowly, and as bacteria work at the surface where oxygen is available. The interior goes anaerobic, oxygen poor, and decomposition stalls. The pile sits there for months, only partially breaking down. The Berkeley method changes this equation through 6 principles. The first principle is the carbon to nitrogen ratio. Bacteria need both carbon and nitrogen to function. Carbon provides energy. Nitrogen provides protein for growth. The ideal ratio is approximately 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen by weight. Too much carbon and bacteria starve for nitrogen. Decomposition slows to a halt. Too much nitrogen and bacteria consume everything quickly, then die off. The pile turns slimy and foul. At the optimal ratio, bacteria multiply explosively. Their population doubles every few hours. Their metabolic activity generates heat. The pile becomes a biological furnace. The second principle is oxygen supply. Aerobic bacteria, the ones that decompose efficiently, need oxygen. In a static pile, oxygen only penetrates a few inches. The interior turns anaerobic, dominated by slow-acting bacteria that produce bad odors. The Berkeley method supplies oxygen through turning. Frequent turning. The pile is turned every 2 days, sometimes daily during the active phase. Each turn moves interior material to the outside and exterior material to the inside. Every particle gets time in the oxygen-rich zone. The third principle is moisture. Bacteria need water to live and metabolize. A dry pile is a dead pile, but too much water fills the air spaces and creates anaerobic conditions. The ideal moisture content is 50 to 60%. The pile should feel like a wrung-out sponge. Squeeze a handful, and 1 or 2 drops of water should come out. The fourth principle is particle size. Smaller particles have more surface area. More surface area means more contact between bacteria and organic material. More contact means faster decomposition. The Berkeley method calls for shredding or chopping materials before adding them to the pile. Leaves get shredded. Stems get chopped. Large pieces get broken down. The fifth principle is pile size. Too small, and the pile can't generate or retain enough heat. Too large and oxygen can't penetrate even with turning. The ideal pile measures approximately 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet, 1 cubic meter. Large enough to heat up, small enough to turn. The sixth principle is the turning schedule. No, this is where the Berkeley method differs most dramatically from conventional composting. Day 1, build the pile. Day 4, first turn. Day 6, second turn. Day 8, third turn. Day 10, fourth turn. Day 12, fifth turn. Day 14, sixth turn. Compost is ready. Every 2 days, the pile gets turned completely. Interior becomes exterior. Wet zones mix with dry zones. Fresh oxygen reaches everywhere. The turning schedule maintains aerobic conditions throughout the entire process. The bacteria never run out of oxygen. Decomposition never stalls. If you're finding this valuable, hit that like button right now. It tells the algorithm this video matters, and it helps more gardeners discover what the industry doesn't want them to know. All right, let's keep building. Following these 6 principles, the pile heats up within 24 to 48 hours of construction. Internal temperatures reach 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. This heat isn't supplied from the outside. It's generated by bacterial metabolism. Billions of microorganisms consuming organic material and releasing energy. The heat serves multiple purposes. It accelerates decomposition. Thermophilic bacteria, heat-loving species, work faster than their cool temperature relatives. At 130 degrees and above, decomposition happens at maximum speed. It kills weed seeds. Most weed seeds die at temperatures above 140 degrees when maintained for several days. The turning schedule ensures all material spends time in the hottest zone. It destroys pathogens. Disease organisms that might survive normal composting are killed by the sustained elevated temperatures. But the finished compost is safe to use anywhere in the garden. It eliminates pests. Insect eggs and larvae cannot survive thermophilic temperatures. The compost comes out clean. By day 14, the transformation is complete. What went in as recognizable waste comes out as dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling humus. The process most gardeners need a year for takes 2 weeks. Now let me show you how to actually build this. Tomorrow, in your backyard, gather your materials. Brown, carbon-rich material, dry leaves, straw, cardboard, wood chips, sawdust, dried grass. These provide the energy source for bacteria. Green, nitrogen-rich material, fresh grass clippings, kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, fresh manure, green plant parts. These provide protein for bacterial growth. The ratio should be approximately 2 parts brown to 1 part green by volume. This achieves the 30-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio that bacteria prefer. Shred the materials into small pieces. Run leaves over with a lawnmower. Cut stems with shears. Tear cardboard into small fragments. Smaller particles decompose faster. Build the pile in layers. Start with a 6-inch layer of brown on the ground. This ensures drainage and initial carbon. Add a 3-inch layer of green. This supplies the nitrogen that drives bacterial growth. Continue alternating layers until the pile is 3 feet tall. Finish with a brown layer on top to reduce odors and pests. Water each layer as you build. The pile should be moist throughout, like a wrung-out sponge. Dry spots won't decompose. The pile will heat up within 24 to 48 hours. Push your hand in, or use a compost thermometer. The interior should reach 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And if it doesn't heat up, the pile is too dry, too small, or too low on nitrogen. Begin the turning schedule on day 4. Use a pitchfork to move the entire pile to an adjacent spot. Outside material goes to the center. Center material goes to the outside. Break up any clumps. Add water if you find dry spots. After turning, the pile should reheat within 24 hours. Temperatures should return to the thermophilic range. Continue turning every 2 days. Day 4, turn. The pile should be hot. Day 6, turn. Still hot. Day 8, turn. The pile may begin cooling slightly. Day 10, turn. Cooling further. Day 12, turn. The pile approaches ambient temperature. Day 14, turn. Compost should be finished. On day 14, examine the material. Finished compost is dark brown to black. It has a pleasant, earthy forest smell. The original materials are no longer recognizable. The texture is crumbly and uniform. If recognizable materials remain, continue turning for a few more days. Some piles finish in 14 days, others in 18 or 21. Variables like ambient temperature and material composition affect the speed. Use the finished compost immediately or store it for later. Unlike immature compost, finished Berkeley compost won't burn plants or rob nitrogen from the soil. Apply it directly to garden beds, mix it into potting soil, or use it as top dressing around established plants. The comparison with slow composting is stark. A neglected pile produces compost in 6 to 12 months. The compost is often inconsistent, with undecomposed pockets and partially broken down material. Weed seeds survive. Pathogens may persist. A Berkeley pile produces compost in 14 to 21 days. The compost is uniform and completely finished. Weed seeds are dead. Pathogens are destroyed. Same materials, same basic process, radically different results. The only difference is management. Turning. Moisture. Attention. 14 days of attention versus 12 months of waiting. The choice seems obvious once you know both options exist. The Amish didn't learn this from Dr. Raabe. They learned it from their grandparents. Who learned it from their grandparents? Who brought the knowledge from Germany and Switzerland 300 years ago? The Amish farming system depends on rapid composting. Amish farms don't buy synthetic fertilizer. Their beliefs emphasize self-sufficiency. Everything the farm needs, the farm produces itself. This creates a fertility challenge. Mere crops extract nutrients from the soil. Animals consume feed that came from the soil. Without returning nutrients, the soil depletes. The Amish solution is active, large-scale composting. Every Amish farm operates active composting systems. Animal manure, crop residues, kitchen waste, and bedding flow continuously into composting operations. If composting took 6 to 12 months, the system would require enormous space. Piles would accumulate faster than they finished. The farm would fill with compost in waiting. But when composting takes 14 days, the system stays compact. Material enters, transforms, and goes out to the fields before more material accumulates. Fast composting isn't a convenience for the Amish. It's a necessity. Their entire farming model depends on it. The same techniques appear worldwide in traditional agriculture. Yet in China, farmers have practiced hot composting for over 4,000 years. Ancient agricultural texts describe layering materials, maintaining moisture, and turning piles to generate heat. The recommendations match the Berkeley method exactly. In France, the technique is called compostage à chaud, hot composting. French market gardeners used it to achieve intensive yields in small areas. In Japan, bokashi composting achieves similar speed through fermentation. The principle is the same. Managed decomposition outperforms neglected piles. In India, the indoor method developed in the 1920s by Sir Albert Howard documented the same principles. Proper carbon to nitrogen ratio, appropriate moisture, regular turning, finished compost in weeks instead of months. Every agricultural tradition that needed fast fertility discovered the same solution. The principles are universal. The knowledge is ancient. Only modern gardeners were taught to wait 12 months. The teaching of slow composting serves specific interests. The fertilizer industry does not benefit from gardeners who produce their own fertility. A gardener who composts fast doesn't need fertilizer, produces soil amendment faster than they can use it, gives surplus to neighbors, never visits the fertilizer aisle. A gardener who composts slowly still needs fertilizer. Their compost pile takes a year to mature. In the meantime, they buy products. They remain a customer. The fertilizer industry didn't suppress fast composting through conspiracy. They simply didn't teach it. Extension services, often funded by agribusiness, taught slow composting as the only method. Publications from organizations close to the fertilizer industry emphasized waiting. The active management required for fast composting went unmentioned. The composting equipment industry had parallel interests. A gardener who builds a simple pile needs no equipment. A pitchfork to turn, maybe a hose to water. No purchase required. The equipment industry sells tumblers, bins, aerators, thermometers, activators, and accessories. They need gardeners to believe composting requires products. Fast composting doesn't require products. It requires knowledge and work. Neither can be sold, but the biological machine still exists. The bacteria that powered Amish agriculture for 300 years still live in every handful of dirt. The decomposition processes that transform waste into fertility still operate under the same principles. The knowledge was never lost. It was simply never taught. Dr. Raabe taught it. The Amish teach it. Ancient Chinese agricultural texts taught it. Now this video teaches it. The pile you build tomorrow can be finished compost in 2 weeks. The waste you throw away today can feed your garden this month. The fertilizer you buy can be the last bag you ever purchase. A pitchfork, a pile, 2 weeks, fertility forever. If this changed how you see the resources in your garden, subscribe and hit the bell. We dig up the history others tried to bury. Let's grow the future together. The next treasure from nature will be revealed soon.